Ivan, some of these terms just don't make sense.
Hi, I'm Ivan.
I'm Nick.
And this is the DIY Detail Podcast. In our industry, we've inherited terms that have been around longer than DIY. We're having to use them, but some of them really just don't make sense. And we're here to, bring a little clarity to that muddy situation.
Well, speaking of mud, we're talking about cleaning cars, and
Right.
our products work very well to clean cars. And we take pride in those products having very simple names.
Right.
But a couple of them, we didn't change from sort of the industry nomenclature, right? And one of them, I just want to start out with, is iron remover. And a lot of people think it removes iron. We're going to get to others, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
But I figured let's just start with iron remover, Ivan, in terms of the name and what it actually does.
Right. So, iron remover is not the best way of describing it. It's not removing iron. So if you take a piece of rusted iron and put it in a little bowl of iron remover, do it outside because it's going to smell inside the house. But you do that, the iron is still going to be there when you're done. The rust that was on the iron is going to be gone. So it should really be called a rust remover. But even that's not a good term. It's a rust converter or a rust stain remover might be a better thing. But the term has been coined iron remover, and that's what the industry has run with, so we're stuck with it. But basically what's happening with iron remover is you have an embedded piece of iron that's stuck to your paint. Okay, it was hot, it just came off the brakes, it's stuck, it's there. When you spray iron remover on it, you're not removing the iron. You're removing the little layer of rust that's around it. And you're hoping, if you're lucky, that that layer of rust around that piece of iron was big enough that when you spray it on there, it's going to break that rust down and that iron remover, that piece of iron is going to come off the paint. So you've decontaminated the paint. A lot of the times it doesn't do that. What it does, it will topically remove the iron or the rust that's on the outside of that piece of iron, but the little bit of rust that's between the paint and the iron, it doesn't quite get into. And that's why you have a lot of people that they'll spray on iron remover, they'll put a lot of it on there, they'll let it sit for 5 minutes, they'll pressure wash it off, they spray it again, it still looks bad, still a lot of red streaking, so they'll spray it again and they'll spray it again, they'll go through 16, 20 ounces on a car. We teach you to use something else. And this is another one that the name isn't right in the industry, but we teach you to use a perforated synthetic decontamination towel, which is more accurate than the normal term of clay towel. But what we're doing is now we're physically removing that iron particle. And that iron particle now is gone. The iron remover just has to deal with the stain that's left on the surface. And before you start overthinking this, you can't even see that little bit of iron. So don't worry about it being in the perforated synthetic decontamination towel. It's not going to be scratching your paint. We have enough lubrication with our iron remover that it's not going to be scratching your paint. And the perforated synthetic decontamination towel is made in a way that that little microscopic grain of metal is not going to be affecting your paint.
It's worth noting here that all iron removers and all clay towels are not created equal.
No, not at all. Some have solvents in them. Some of them don't have lubrication. Our, iron remover or rust stain converter or however you want to put it, but we'll stick with iron remover because that's the industry term. Our iron remover has surfactants in it, so it's going to clean a little deeper. They also provide lubrication. They provide a bit of sudsing to see where you're going, and we suggest it be used with another product, and that is either our Rinseless wash or our Incredible Suds for additional lubrication.
Yeah, we'll wash the paint first, and while it's still wet, so you have the lubrication from your soap, whether it's Incredible Suds or Rinseless wash, then we'll use one spray of the iron remover and then one spray on our towel, and with no pressure, we go ahead and decontaminate. We've done this in probably, 60 or 70 long form videos over the last couple of years. But it still is new to people, and they've never done it before, and they're blown away. I see the comments thanking you specifically. They're like, I did this on my vehicle. I saved so much iron remover. Thank you. But they may ask, Ivan, does someone else's branded iron remover work with our decon towel or our clay towel?
Some do, some don't. We haven't tested every iron remover on the market, and we're not about to. If you're using another brand's product, first of all, ask them. They may know. If they don't know, then yes, you're going to have to do a little test, and you may end up having to buy another perforated synthetic decontamination towel, or you may not. So
So is the
uh,
concern that it won't be enough lubrication for the towel, in which case it could mar or scratch the paint, or is the
there's
concern that
that.
it could mess up our towel?
Both. So, yes, it may not provide enough lubrication, and B, it may actually start degrading the towel. Or if you're using a good old-fashioned clay bar, you can use our iron remover with a good old-fashioned clay bar if you want to. Some iron removers will actually break down that clay bar, as they will break down our perforated synthetic decontamination towel.
While we're on the subject, you mentioned a clay bar. We also said clay towel.
Yeah.
Neither of them are clay.
No, there's no clay involved whatsoever. No clay was mined in the making of a clay towel. And we started this off jokingly, but it's starting to stick. And we call ours a perforated synthetic decontamination towel because that's what it is. It's a perforated synthetic surface that decontaminates the paint, and it's on a microfiber towel. So the PSD towel, perforated synthetic decontamination towel, I know it's a mouthful. So clay towel is a lot easier to use. There is no clay towel that contains clay. There's very, very few clay bars that contain clay, if any, for that matter. They might have in the beginning, but it's not around anymore. The clay bars, if you've never used one, think of Play-Doh when you were a kid. So it's like modeling clay. That's what it feels like, hence the name clay bar. There's plumber's putty that some people have tried to use as a clay bar, and it actually works. Not very well, but it does work. But what we're doing is decontaminating. So it should have been called a paint decontamination bar. It should have been called a clay or a decontamination towel for the old style ones that weren't perforated, or ours, the perforated synthetic decontamination towel. They're all synthetic materials. They all decontaminate. Some are on a towel, some are in a bar form. But the term clay bar, yeah, it's a little misleading, but it's the industry accepted term. It's been around for 20 some years now. We're not about to change it. Those of you that are fans of DIY, that are subscribed, maybe in our Facebook group, I've seen other people actually type out perforated synthetic decontamination towel, and I thank you. But it isn't an industry accepted term. Maybe one day the industry will change, but for now, even on our label, for SEO purposes, it's called the clay towel.
Because that's what people look it up as on the
Yeah,
internet. And that's
exactly.
where we have product that we sell. DIYdetail.com, in case
Yeah.
you didn't know, folks. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, that would make my heart very warm and happy. Certainly supports us in the mission that we have, which is to put these videos out to educate you, and we'll continue to do that, obviously. And then if you buy from us because you trust us, you like us, you want to say thank you, that helps us out as well. But
Yeah.
the subscribe thing is free. So that's, we are running a business. The subscribe thing is free. We're all in the ecosystem to help each other. I appreciate everybody. Oh my goodness. I have so many terms that I wrote down that I'm all over the place.
Yeah.
Water spot remover, Ivan. Water spot remover.
Right. So, mineral accumulation remover is a better term. Water spot remover does not remove water spots. If your water spots are fresh, they just happened yesterday, they happened last week, you spray it on, yes, they're going to disappear. Excellent. Because you're actually not removing the water spots, you're removing the minerals that cause the water spot. Now, they've been baking in the sun for 6 months. You're going to use water spot remover on it, and you might not be too happy. It's not going to damage anything. You're still going to see the etching that was caused by those water spots. Now, the minerals that cause them, the water spot remover has taken them away. They're gone. Life is good. But the etching, the only way to remove that is through compounding or through polishing, because it's actually etched into the paint. If you take a microscope and look at that very closely, you're going to see that paint is actually etched. It's actually a hole in the paint that's caused by that mineral. And there's no chemical on the market other than, if you put something that's going to fill. If you put a paste wax, yeah, it's probably going to fill it. But the water spot remover itself is not going to magically make that paint swell back up and reappear where it was. So yes, a water spot remover, again, it is technically removing water spots, but it's better termed a mineral deposit remover or a mineral accumulation remover, or however you want to look at it, but we're removing minerals from the surface.
Mineral accumulation dissolver. Mad.
Ooh, it's mad. Yeah, hey, that's a good one. Well, you might see that in our marketing one day.
No, I mean, because there's different products out there, and some of them are like, you better dang well wear gloves when you use these, and so I feel like if those are stronger, more acid, could they potentially remove that etching? And what you're
No.
saying is even those, like the etching is different from the minerals.
Right. The etching is etched. It's like a scratch in your paint that's in the shape of the water spot that was there. So you're not going to get rid of that with a chemical. You are going to get rid of the mineral accumulation. And that mineral accumulation, if it's a fresh water spot, maybe even a month old, it's going to take care of it. It's not a problem. But once it starts etching, so normally on dark colored cars, on a light colored car, a silver, a white, it doesn't get hot enough for the minerals to dig their way into the plastic that is clear coat. But on a dark colored car, it does get hot enough. And that's where those minerals, they're a little heavier, they get warmer because of that heat, and they sink deeper and deeper into that clear coat, etching it. The acidity, or not the acidic, but the most mineral accumulations or water spots are caustic in nature. And that caustic effect of those minerals will etch and eat away at the paint. Same thing as a bird dropping. You get a bird dropping on a car, that etching is permanent. The only way to get rid of it is through compounding, through abrasion.
So a couple of terms that I feel like could be misleading. Well, I don't know. All-purpose cleaner and degreaser.
Right. Some people interchange the two, and they're two very, very different products. So, an all purpose cleaner is generally safe to be used everywhere. So, our all clean is an example. You can use it on the interior, you can use it on the exterior, you can do an engine with it, you can do tires, you can do wheels, you can do all sorts of things. A degreaser, though, that shouldn't cross over into being an all purpose cleaner because you've done it before. I've seen it on your Hawk Pro detailing channel. There are products out there that are sold in big box stores, probably in a purple bottle, that when you use them, people use them as an APC, but even their instructions don't say to use it as an APC. But people take that degreaser, great at cleaning an engine, and then use it on the interior, and then they get this white residue everywhere. Well, that white residue is that degreaser actually breaking down the plastic.
Is that what that
And
is?
yeah, so it's damaging your
That's
interior. It's
happened.
damaging the plastic.
Yeah. That's
Yeah,
happened with a couple of, I don't know, all-purpose cleaner slash degreasers I used from bigger name brands back in the day on my channel, and I kind of
right.
wondered, man, what happened there?
Right. So a degreaser and an all-purpose cleaner are two different things, and they're not interchangeable. Now, an all-purpose cleaner, yes, you can use it to remove grease and stuff like that. It's not as effective as a good degreaser, and a good all-purpose cleaner is a lot safer than a good degreaser. So keep the degreaser for your engine base, for the suspension, for the exterior parts of the car. Never bring something that's labeled as a degreaser into the inside of your car.
You might you might get away with it, but it's just not worth the risk.
No, the risks are too high. So yeah, there is a fine line between degreaser and all-purpose cleaner, and that line probably shouldn't be crossed.
Paint correction, Ivan.
Yeah.
Paint correction. Misleading
So
term?
yeah, no, to me that's not a good term. First of all, correction is such a negative term. You go to prison to be corrected. Paint enhancement is a much better term for me.
Okay.
But and that's what we're striving to do is enhance the paint. But we're actually not correcting it. We're actually damaging it more every time we polish it. Because if you think of that scratch, let's say, for all intents and purposes, your clear coat is roughly about 50 microns thick or 2 mils. You have a scratch that is 1 mil deep or 25 microns. What are you doing? You're removing clear coat around that scratch
Yep.
down to the level of that scratch. You're
Yep.
not taking clear coat from point A and putting it into point B. You're not taking clear coat around the scratch and depositing the scratch. Reflowing paint doesn't exist. Actually, it did with lacquer paints back in the 60s. It's not happening anymore with today's clear coat. So don't even think about it. But what we're doing with quote unquote paint correction is we're damaging the paint to make it look better. But we are damaging the paint. Every time we polish, we're removing clear coat from the surface. And when we're removing clear coat, that is damaging it. And another thing, we call it paint correction. No, we're correcting or we're enhancing the clear coat unless you're working on a single stage paint. So single stage paint can actually be called paint correction or paint enhancement. But in reality, we're working on clear coat. But for the average consumer out there, clear coat paint, same thing. But again, paint correction, we're not correcting it, we're actually damaging it more. Paint enhancement, we're trying to enhance it. And when you look at it as paint enhancement, you get a better understanding of what we're doing. And we're not trying, in our case, we're not telling people to go out there and remove every scratch off their vehicle. You want to round over the corners of the scratch so you don't see it anymore. It's still there, but you're not removing all that clear coat down to the level of the bottom of the scratch because now you've damaged the paint.
Any other misleading terms? I just the more I think about it, the more I wonder what does anything mean and how do we define a word? And it's like, okay, maybe
Right.
that's going too far.
You're a little too esoteric there,
I
but
was getting pretty high up there of like, how far do we want to take this?
yeah, no, we're not into philosophy here, so don't worry about it. We're not going to go all philosophical on you. But basically, you have to take a term in detailing for what it is. And, one thing that a lot of people get confused on, let's say, is waterless wash. There is water, and you'll get the arguments from the naysayers all the time that you can't call it a waterless wash, there's water in it. Yes, there is. There's water in it for sure, but it is not water less in the fact that there's no water in it. It's just you're not introducing more water into that wash process. So it is not a waterless wash in the sense of what we're saying. It is a no extra water added to do this vehicle cleaning. Think of it as a liquid duster. You know, there are companies out there that take their waterless wash, and it's usually less reputable companies that say you can go off-roading with your Jeep, get it covered in mud,
Yep.
clean it
Yep.
with this, and it's
Yep.
going to be spectacular. It's going to be perfect. Wrong answer. And those are the same people that tell you with a ceramic coating that never wash your car again. Wrong. Yeah, no, you're still gonna need to wash your car. You're still gonna need to use water. You're still gonna need to do all these things. And a waterless wash is a great tool to have, but it is not an all-purpose cleaner. It is not used in every situation. It shouldn't be used to wash your car if your car is dirty. It is there to dust your car. It's there to clean up. It's there to get rid of a bird bomb here and there, but it is not the solution for washing your car for everyday use.
It does what it does very well, but its lane
Right.
is pretty narrow.
Yeah, it's narrow, but it's useful in a lot of different ways, but just very targeted ways. So,
I love having it to spray on wheels after I've cleaned them, or do door jams, or just
yeah,
do a nice final touch-up wipe. I do enjoy waterless wash, hanging on my garage wall.
right.
Grab it. It's just nice to have.
Yeah, when you need it, it's there. It's
Yep.
happy to help, but don't ask it to, work too hard. It's not its job.
And I have the one, folks, may be surprised to hear you talk about rinseless washing.
Right. So, rinseless washing is a term that would better be termed, no rinsing after you've done the contact wash washing. It's a little long in the mouth. It's
Right.
a little long to write out.
Yep.
So the term rinseless has been coined. And it shouldn't be called rinseless, as in rinseless, one word, it should be called rinse less. You're rinsing less often. You're not rinsing as much. You still need to pre-rinse. You still need to pre-soak. You still need a hose at some point if you want to be 100% safe. Now, I have done completely hoseless washes with a rinseless wash. And it's a technique that you need to learn. And people that are adapting their soap and water techniques to a rinse less wash may not have the best results. But you need to be logical in how you work with a rinse less wash. You still need to pre-treat the panel. If you have heavy accumulations of dirt, you still need that on there. You still need to rinse those heavy accumulations off. So you need to pre-rinse like we do our foam rinse foam. So we'll put the rinse less wash on the surface. We'll let it dwell. We'll let it emulsify, break down the dirt, lift it off the surface. Then we'll hit it with a hose. Then we reapply a little more, rinse less wash. Then we do our contact wash, and now we can dry. So we don't need to rinse after the contact wash. And saying you don't need to rinse after the contact wash may not be, again, the best term, but officially that's what it, how it should be termed. But the term rinseless has come into the market. Rinseless washes have existed for 30 years now. It's not a new thing, but that's how they're termed.
Well, yeah, and a lot of people think rinseless means hoseless and all these things, and so it gets a little
Yeah,
confusing, right?
right.
I feel like whether you're using Incredible Suds or rinseless wash, the big difference maker for me and I guess it's just if you're using rinseless, right? Is if you have a pressure washer. So the step in between your first pre-treat and then the pressure washer and then your product and then the contact wash, having the pressure washer blast off that grit after you've safely allowed the first product to emulsify and break things down and lift the dirt, that tends to me to be the biggest difference maker. I feel like having a pressure washer versus a hose, the pressure washer just does a better job of flushing that crud off the paint. So when I do my contact wash, I'm interacting with less stuff. Is there any truth to that?
Yeah, definitely. And a lot of people have adapted a hybrid rinseless wash, meaning they'll foam first, let that dwell,
Like
enjoy it.
foam of soap or foam
Yeah,
rinseless?
foam. No,
Okay.
foam with soap. So foam with incredible suds. Let it sit. Let it dwell. Then rinse that away. Then apply a bit of rinseless wash on the surface. Use your sponge. Dry it off. You're good. So
That's
you sort of
that's how I used to do it in my shop. I didn't have either of our products, but I liked the foaming of a traditional soap. I loved how amazing it is when you're done with your rinseless to just go ahead and dry. Like I didn't want to have to hose it off again and then dry, right?
right, exactly. So yeah, definitely a rinseless wash is a technique. It's something you need to adapt to. But once you learn how to do it, it's as safe, if not safer, than a traditional soap and water wash, and it's just as fun to do. You don't have the foaming, but there are other things in life other than foaming. So, but yeah, definitely this industry has a lot of weird terms that you know people have taken them for granted and not really thought about what they're doing or saying. And another one is polishing now, or polish in itself. uh, Depending on where you are in the world, a polish means very different things, and even
Yes.
here in North America. So for some people it's very confusing. When you say polish, they're thinking shoe polish, and shoe polish is basically a wax with colorants in it, and it's filling in the imperfections in your shoes so you get that nice shiny you know dress shoe. That is a shoe polish. But when we talk about automotive, some people, a wax and a polish are the same thing. Other people, a compound and a polish are the same thing. And we call it the gold standard polish. If we're really in tune with what it actually is, it's a gold standard compound, but it finishes like a polish.
I
And
believe the original bottle of Gold Standard had compound slash polish on it.
right, it did. The prototype did.
Yep.
And we changed that simply because of the way the industry views a polish. But a lot of people get confused, especially when they're new to the detailing space. And when you're new to the detailing space, a finishing polish to a lot of people is, oh, it's a wax. People ask us a lot, what type of wax is in gold standard polish? There's no wax.
No wax.
How long will the beading last with gold standard polish? It won't, because there's nothing in it to protect the paint. It is not a protection product. So we know from the comments and questions that we get that people still associate the word polish with some sort of LSP, or last step product, and there's no protection in it whatsoever. It leaves your paint perfectly clean and bare to accept a finishing, or a coating, or a ceramic gloss, or a quick beads, or a wax. But it is not in any way, shape, or form a form of protection. Whereas in some parts of the world, a polish is a form of protection. So
Well, and I
it's a term
appreciate
that's a
you.
little misleading.
Yeah, because you've taught detailing all over the world. You happen to be from Canada, which
Yeah,
is a culture in Quebec that is foreign to me. So you have a little bit more perspective on this. You always remind me 4 milliliters to a liter, right?
yeah,
When I forget the metric system. So we have an international customer and fan base now. So it's important to hear these things, Ivan, because otherwise
yeah,
I wouldn't know.
exactly. And speaking of knowing things, we have this video right here that you can take a look at. There, this side, yeah.
Yep.
So you yeah, you take a look at this video, and you'll see washing with a rinseless wash a very, very dirty car.